So what characteristic makes a work of art effectively sacred? To start approaching this question, I'm going to talk a little bit about David Lynch. I see David Lynch as really like the great artist of our time. Partly because I think that he engages in multiple of the art horizons that I've described in a way that's pretty rare. And I feel like Merritt's saying that it probably sounds kind of cringe to say that someone as famous and widely popular as David Lynch is a good artist of our time, but I would actually say that that's a mark of just how great he is, that he has found a way to be very, very popular, and also, have his work carry a kind of energy and a message that, if you're available to it, can just like completely change your life. And I would say that maybe he's as popular as he is for other reasons, but that's not entirely true either. And actually, there's more to say about that. So there's really two things that I think that David Lynch does in his films, in sort of the post-Twin Peaks, or like including Twin Peaks, and then all the films after that. Not really as much before. And one is there are these moments of catharsis in his films. Maybe the best one, or the kind of most iconic one, is the one in Mulholland Drive. In the Theater of Silence, where the No I Banda scene, basically, where over and over again you're sort of lured into a kind of emotional investment in a musical experience that is either just musical or very heartfelt, and then you're sort of told over and over again, like, oh, this actually isn't real, this isn't happening. And there's a similar scene in Lost Highway. These things, just the theme of kind of characters becoming different characters. It has this really kind of cathartic effect, which makes you realize that certain that your more local concerns, your more local sense of identity is relative, basically, and that's something that you can just kind of say, but a great work of art will kind of set up an experience where maybe you wouldn't expect that, and then have it happen. And to me, there's a couple scenes in David Lynch films that just kind of, I've just watched like millions of times for that reason. And so that's one, is just sort of use of the tools of a medium to awaken that epiphany, and it's this, there are other versions of that epiphany, I think, in other horizons of art, but I think it's primarily a spiritual one. I think what something people don't really always realize is that David Lynch believes in kind of Vedic religion. He promotes Maharishi TM constantly, and that has a lot of continuity with Tibetan Buddhism, and the plot, this sort of scenario of Twin Peaks is a sort of instance of Tibetan Buddhist metaphysics, or this kind of metaphysics that's sort of situated somewhere between the Vedic and the Buddhist, that's kind of like tantric, whatever, where we live multiple lives. There are these bodhisattvas, the Cooper's the bodhisattva who's sort of trying to uproot complexes of evil, and so he's also, that's another thing, is just sort of telling a story that has sort of cosmic metaphysical depth, but couching it in sort of scenarios that like a modern person can understand, because it's not an ancient text or something like that. It's like modern day America. And the third is that there are some readings of his work which I personally agree with, that he sees himself as especially with his TV works, or I guess Twin Peaks, but that's the only one, but also the film ones, of that the current horizon of media is an oppressive force that's kind of keeping people sinful and enslaved and confused and afraid, and instead of just choosing to check out and do something entirely different or off the grid, he's sort of choosing to engage in that apparatus, and then sort of be a Trojan horse, where you're actually on a TV, in the 90s, you're on a TV network, and sort of using materials that are very lurid, that are sort of attractive in the sugar-coated way, but then sort of secretly implanting this message of healing. And you can even, there's this kind of Mobius strip where you can argue that Twin Peaks itself is the act of creating Twin Peaks and submitting it to the sort of the TV system and using it is a work of art in itself, a kind of action in the vein of Joseph Beuys or something like that. So there's that depth there. So that's the basic idea of those topics as instantiated by David Lynch.